peel skins from the onions, stems, seeds from peppers, stems from herbs. Anything that you typically throw away, I put in a freezer Ziploc bag in my freezer. And once that gets cold, like full, I make stock. It's a matter of taking out the chicken from the freezer. It's already marinated. It's already seasoned. I literally just have to thaw and cook. There's no more prep. Everything is ready to be thrown together, quick and easy, as soon as we get home from school.
Hi, and welcome to the Motherhood Kit. I'm your host, Yamel Belen, a registered nurse, doula, lactation expert, business owner, and most importantly, I'm a proud mom of 5. Join in weekly as I share my wisdom and dive deep with parenting experts to empower you with your very own toolkit to help navigate the ever-changing seasons of motherhood. From prenatal excitement to the real, raw, sometimes harrowing, and often hilarious sides of mothering. So whether you're seeking guidance, camaraderie, or just want to lighten your load with loads of laughs, the Motherhood Kit is your safe space to connect, learn, and thrive. Let's dive in. Welcome back, Motherhood Kit family. Today, we're going to talk about all things cooking. I'm joined with CG from the Domestic Gourmet, who is reinventing traditional Latin cuisine. I love cooking, and I'm looking forward to having this conversation and getting some tools for my toolkit as well to be able to reinvent the dishes that I grew up with, but make sure that we are health conscious when doing so. Let's dive in. Hi, CG. Welcome to the Motherhood Kit podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited for this conversation. I know that the audience has heard me yap about this so much. I actually love to be in the kitchen. My dream is to have my dream kitchen. I feel like as a Latina mom, that's very much an extension of how we grew up. And I feel like that's very much rooted into how we show love to our family, right? By our cooking.
Definitely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I will say though, funny story, that I'm Dominican. Mm-hmm. And my husband swears, he'll tell our family and friends, he'll say, Yamel tricked me because I thought I was marrying a Dominican woman that was going to cook me Dominican food every day. And I'm like, first of all, I'm also a working mom, so I cannot make habichuelas from scratch every day. But not only that, for me, it has, my version of cooking. It has evolved because of my being health conscious with my family. So I really was super excited to have you on because I know that you're reinventing Latin cuisine. So tell our audience a little bit about you and your journey into where you are with your organization.
Thank you. So first of all, super excited to be here. I was so happy to get your email because I just adore you. And I've only met you a couple times, but
likewise.
And I want to give to this space because I too am a working mom now. Before the pandemic, I ran a nonprofit community organization for women and children. So this whole mom life has been my life. And through the pandemic, it gave me an opportunity to just slow down and cook the food that I want to cook. And I started making everything from scratch. Well, I love it, but kids started going to school, then there's after school activities, and now I decided to open up a business. So Domestic Gourmet started as basically digital marketing. I've always been a writer. So, I started covering stories that were interesting to me and I got more and more in food. But I am a stage 4 endometriosis patient. So I would get sick and need a surgery and be out of work for 3 to 4 months. Mm-hmm. And I realized my business model was not sustainable. So I started focusing my energy on creating a product, right? And that's when my husband and I, started brainstorming and we thought about aceite de achiote. This is a staple food that is Dominican, Puerto Rican. I'm also Cuban, but Dominican and Puerto Ricans, we know what this is. But it's one of those things that is made, it has to be made from scratch because you can't buy it. And I started thinking about meal prepping. Our generation, we work, whereas our mothers, our grandmothers, our aunts didn't. They were in the home. And so everything was made from scratch. So for me, it's how can I create something that is traditional and authentic, but also readily available? And then also clean. My grandmother was diagnosed with couple types of cancers in her 80s. And in doing some research with my kids on this topic of, why I wouldn't go to Costco and buy a box of 100 fruit roll-ups, which, no shade to that company, but it's the red dye number 40 scared me. And in explaining it to my children, the kind of cancers that my grandmother had, red dye number 40 causes, and it's in all of our products. It's in the sazon packets. It's in the adobo. It's in everything that we use in my house every single day. And when I correlated the two, there was no way that I, knowing that we have that history now, could feed that to my kids. So I started figuring it out. And so I'm not going to lie, that night, our arroz con salchicha was like a neon yellow because I used way too much turmeric. But, that's how Domestic Gourmet got started. So in talking about prepping foods, habichuela, when I make habichuela from scratch, I make a double batch and I buy those Bell glass jars in all different sizes and I freeze them. So that way on a night where we come home or something, like delays us and now we're getting home at 6:00 at night and you still got dinner and homework and baths and I have a 4-year-old, I can pull one from the freezer, thaw it real quick, make some rice real quick, make chicken. So that's kind of one of my hacks.
I love that. We actually, on another episode, because obviously everybody can tell now, I love the food chat and having people on that can, I aim to give tools, right, to our moms, the motherhood kit, right? And a guest, her platform is called Live Simply, and I followed her for years because I wanted more inspiration specifically for lunchbox ideas, like what to pack my kids because we pack lunches. And that is always her thing. She says, cook once, eat twice. So she's always like, listen, if you're going to always, she's like, if you're going to take the time to make this meal, we might as well make a double batch. For me, it's a little bit harder because we're a family of 7, 6 of us are still here. So it gets kind of challenging. I'm not going to lie to you because I'm like, oh my God, do I even have enough freezer space? But that trick with the beans is such a great trick.
I also use that trick for sofrito. And I can't take the credit for it because I learned it from my husband's aunt, Titi Lucy. But I make sofrito and then I freeze it in ice cube trays. And I keep it in a gallon Ziploc bag in the freezer. So anytime it's quick and I don't have the time to chop and dice everything that we put into our food, that's another thing. But I have a family of 5, so I get it. And what I do with cook once, eat twice is I meal prep that way. So if I cook Monday, we're eating it Monday and Tuesday. And then same thing, Wednesday cook again, and Wednesday we're eating Wednesday and Thursday.
And nobody gives you any gripe for that? Because sometimes I get a little bit of gripe.
No, I'm sorry. If I'm making the sacrifice, I'm tired.
She's like,
and I'm cooking for you. You have 2 choices. You can eat what I make or you cannot eat it, but this is the meal that I'm cooking and I cook it with love and I cook it for you. And I try to keep my kids in mind, like my middle child hates picadillo, carne molida. She doesn't like it. It's my oldest kid's favorite. My youngest will eat whatever you make. But it's quick and easy. Picadillo, I can make that in 20 minutes. So on those nights where I'm making picadillo, I'll try and keep her in mind and try and do it on a night that I still have leftovers that she'll eat. So she'll still eat, whatever we're pairing the picadillo with, she'll just have a different protein. And I just try to keep that in mind so that at least they're eating home-cooked food.
Yeah. And so I love these hacks and I do the same thing with the sofrito, which reminds me I need to make some. And I agree with you, like with our grandmas. I mean, my mom was a working mom, but I do remember her slaving in the kitchen every night after she got home, which can be so exhausting, which I feel that is why a lot of families, they don't have the way to cook. Most moms that I know that talk to me, my friends, they're like, you cook every night? I'm like, yes, I really do. I do try to incorporate that. Like I just said, the cook once, eat twice, even if it is for the side, and I can kind of like spice it up and make it with something else. I just came back from Dominican Republic, which I absolutely love spending time there. And it's so funny as a kid, that's where we always was, we're in the summers. And sometimes I would get bored with that, like every summer going there. And now I'm like, I just want to be here. And I love, like part of our culture when it comes to food is in Dominican Republic, the big meal is consumed midday. which I feel
Which-
here as Americans, like we are doing it backwards because who has the time to create this whole big meal after work at 6 o'clock? I feel most people get out at 6 o'clock. And then you're trying to incorporate your culture into it, which most of our foods, whether you are Latina like us, or maybe you're Italian background or German or whatever, the foods take a lot of time. Like
They
most
do.
of
They
our
take a lot of
cuisine,
prep.
right? A lot of prep. So what other tips do you think that you can provide our audience for simplifying specifically classic Latin dishes without us losing the essence?
So I only cook Latin food, and I don't only cook Latin food. During the week, it's what I rely on because I don't have to think about it and I can just whip it up, right?
Yeah, it comes easiest
And
to you.
it comes easy because it's what I know. If I have the time, then yeah, I'll make the pasta from scratch and I'll make the Italian food. But that I have to think about. The way I prep is when I do my shopping on Sunday for the week. That's when I season and prep all of my meats. That's when I cut and prep all of my vegetables. Like if I allot, and that takes, I'm not gonna lie, like to go grocery shopping, once the groceries are home, it can take 2 to 3 hours.
Yeah,
But
that is a
then
very time
it is
intensive task for all of us.
for everybody. But what that does is that allots me ease during the week. It's a matter of taking out the chicken from the freezer. It's already marinated. It's already seasoned. I literally just have to thaw and cook. There's no more prep. There's no more dicing or slicing or anything. Like literally everything is ready to be thrown together quick and easy as soon as we get home from school. Another thing that I do is like my middle child loves pita empanizado. But again, pounding out the steaks, those little thin steaks, you got to pound them out real thin so they're nice and tender because it's typically not a tender cut of meats. And then to empanizarlo, and I put it in flour, egg, breadcrumbs, right? This is a lot. I mean, you don't think about it. It seems easy because it is easy, but it's time consuming. So when I do that, I'll do 3 packs of steaks because like you, family of 5, we can go through a pack or 2 for just one dinner. So I'll make double and then I freeze it, even if I don't cook it all. I'll freeze it. So like on a night where, we're eating picadillo, I can just cook up a steak. Those are my hacks. Another hack that I have, this is a money-saving hack, and it's my favorite. So I've shared it all the time, is I make my vegetables work 3 times for me. So now, let's talk about the cost of groceries. They're astronomical, especially when you're buying produce, especially when you're buying organic produce, right? So what I do is when I peel skins from the onions, stems, seeds from peppers, stems from herbs, literally, I have a whole list on my website, but anything that you typically throw away, I put in a freezer Ziploc bag in my freezer. And once that gets cool, like full, I make stock.
Yeah.
Vegetable stock. I haven't bought stock in 4 years. And
Amazing.
I use it in everything. If I have let's say I don't have something to make my kids or whatever, like if I'm going to do like yellow rice, right? For the middle child, she's my picky one. Everything revolves around accommodating her so she'll eat home cooked food. I'll use the stock. I can make a yellow rice. And now at least she's eating something that is fortified. So then I make the stock, right? So you have your vegetables, you use the scraps for stock, and then I compost and I use the compost for soil.
Yeah, I do the composting as well. I love that tip. I use a lot of stock, actually. I cook a variation. I do get those days where I just get a burst and I'm like, let's make arroz con gandule. Let's make, some sort of pernil. Let's make fried plantains. Like I want everything. But then there are those days that I also make one pot pasta or I'm like, let's make a chili
That's what I'm doing
really
tonight.
quick. I mean, I will use still fresh sofrito if I have it. I will use still kind of like the seasoning that are known to us and our culture, but I will make things that I feel are more, Americanized. Now that you touched on the picky eaters, because I know a lot of our moms are listening and they're probably eye rolling right now, and they're probably in the same, going through the same challenges. I will say as a nurse, something that I do know is A lot of times we feel that our kids are picky, but it is intolerance that they have to certain things and their body rejects it. I have one of those myself, my 23-year-old. Growing up, I was always like, oh my God, this girl, like she doesn't want anything. Like everything that we're offering her, she doesn't want. And I was like you, I would try different things or accommodate to her. She has severe like gluten intolerance, corn, certain things will just upset her stomach. But as a kid, she couldn't verbalize that. But that leads me to the question, do you feel that we should solely focus on making what the picky eater wants, or what's your trick to make sure that everybody's kind of like getting what they want for the meal without only, focusing on one person?
So I don't want to give the illusion that I cater and she gets what she wants. There are sacrifices because we're a family. We have to work as a team. So some nights, she might not want to eat what's being made, but it's what's being made. If I have the time to prep and prepare something, or if I have something in the fridge for her to eat, then I offer that to her. But when it comes to like carne molida, I think it's texture and flavor. So because it's only that. She'll eat steak. She'll eat hamburger. It's just the molida she doesn't like.
Yeah. And carne molida for our non-Spanish speakers.
Ground beef.
Ground beef. Yeah. And it's true. A lot of kids just don't like ground beef.
They don't, but it's a staple in my house. I grew up on it and I hated it. And now I love it again, But I think that when it comes to, it's give and take, right? So I think, we travel a lot. And sometimes when you're traveling a lot, you're eating out a lot. And I find that when you start eating out a lot, then what they want is the chicken nuggets and the pizza. And so it's having to get back into, let's get our taste buds back to home cooked food. Because when we're home, I want to cook. So it's just a matter of, okay, you want chicken nuggets? I'll make you chicken nuggets. Yeah. But I'm making them from scratch. So it's still, or I'll throw them in the air fryer, or a give and take, sometimes we don't want to eat what we're being served, and we're adults and we have that choice.
Sometimes I don't want what I'm cooking. Let's be honest. I'm cooking it because part of my technique for the week. I love yours with the seasoning everything. I used to do that. Honestly, I got so bogged down and tired. Maybe I'll restart, but I do a meal plan, and that really helps me because then nobody's asking what's for dinner, and I'm like thinking about it that night. And since the day gets so busy, I may get a client call, or maybe I have to record for the podcast and the day gets away from me. So as long like I know what I need to cook, and that's just there, and the ingredients are there and it's prepped. Another thing that I think that we as Latinas, people of color, families of color need to realize is like we were raised that whatever was made, we had to eat it. Yeah. And it would be like put in front of you and it's like, no, you're going to eat that. It's okay if our kids don't. They can, like you tell your daughter, well, this is what's made. You can have leftover from yesterday. Or like I have my baby, my 9-year-old. She is, if she could be fruits and veggies like all day, every day, I think she would. Yeah. So sometimes she doesn't want, and it's funny, she doesn't like the ground beef too much either. So I always have washed, that's one of my Sunday techniques. I wash like all the fruits and stuff and put them in containers so they can reach easily. So yesterday I made rice. It's funny, we're talking so much about ground beef, guys, but I made rice with like a stir fry with veggies, like ground beef and veggies. Maybe had 2 bites of the ground beef. And of course, she devoured the rice. And then she had this whole bowl of fruit. I'm like, that's fine. I mean, dinner doesn't have to be only dinner. And they have cravings like we have cravings. I don't think we were given that permission growing up, in a Hispanic house.
We grew up in a culture where you were seen and not heard. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's true. Like kids did not have an opinion. The kids were not consulted. We are growing up in a day and age where, at least for me, my children do have a say. I want to hear what they think because I don't want to raise daughters. I'm raising 3 girls. I don't want them to be the people pleasers that I had to grow out of being, right? I want them to be able to say yes to things that they really want and be able to say no to the things they don't really want to say yes to. So I do the same thing. I have fruit always available. If she doesn't want to eat it, I always have bananas too, because she's, I don't want her to get the hunger pains. She's 6. So it's that age where they're growing and you've got a lot of tummy aches. I went through it with my oldest too. So I have the fruit, I have the yogurt, and I have cheese. If they don't want to eat what's being made, there are things, it's not like they're going to go to bed hungry. Yeah, but I do have that. And, it's important for them to be able to, nourish themselves. I'm really interested in what you were saying about intolerances, because I had come across an article recently that I want to do some research on called The Sleeping Hunger. And it's basically what you said. It's like there are deficiencies, like vitamin deficiencies because she is so stubborn that if, I send her to school with something that she doesn't want to eat for lunch, she will starve all day.
Yeah.
And then she doesn't come home like she's raging, starving, like hungry. She could still fight me on dinner and be like, I'll go to bed without eating, so.
Yeah, this could be a whole different episode, but I can send you some resources. What I have, most of my RN career has been pediatrics, and there are a lot of kids with allergies, right? Specifically kids, when you see a child that has like eczema, things like that, it's most of the time they also have a food allergy. But with my girl, with Tatiana, ever since she was an infant, always throwing up. And we realized she had reflux. But now as an adult, especially like she would take the same lunch for school every day. Her father, he was always in charge of packing lunches, and he would say, you know what, I'm not fighting her. I just want her to eat. But then me doing my research, I started realizing it's not that she was picky or defiant. And I love that we're touching on this for our audience, because I know that almost everyone listening has a quote unquote picky eater, but it's not really a picky eater. Their body is rejecting, or most of the time it's not a picky eater, because, there is those cases that yes, they just want to be defiant. But what they ingest, especially when they're toddlers or even your daughter's 6, it has a lot to do with control. And that can also be another episode, but it has to do with them asserting their control, their autonomy. So them being able to say no to us when it comes to food, because we can't force feed them. So they're feeling like, oh, I have autonomy over this. But with Tatiana specifically, I got to realize as the years progressed and I learned more about intolerances and things like that, and then we did specific tests, everything she was rejecting was not being a picky eater. She just had a severe intolerance to it. So as soon as it dropped in her stomach, which a lot of things were Latin, part of our Latin cuisine, she would feel sick. She wouldn't feel good. So that's something to keep in mind for those that are listening and maybe thinking, well, I'm cooking all the things that my mom cooked. Why isn't my 3-year-old liking, rice and beans? It's not that they're picky. It may be that they're intolerant to something. But my next question to you, CG, I heard you say about us making the sofrito fresh and seasonings, staying away from red food dye, which has really been one of my, one of the things that has been very important to me in my kitchen. I love Luisa. I don't know if you use their products.
No, because I make my own.
Right. But sometimes I'm like, you know what? I want to just have some extra stuff. But tell me, what condiments or spices do you recommend we keep in our kitchen to quickly add that signature Latin flavor? But I love the fact that you're also reinventing it to be healthy.
Yeah. So by the summer, I will have my own line of adobo and sazon, but I'm actually making it from fresh produce.
Wow.
So I will be making the garlic powder from scratch. And let me tell you, the first time I made garlic powder from scratch, first of all, I had no idea. It was like almost like tear gas, because the whole kitchen was just, my eyes were burning. And I did a reel for that. I haven't posted it, but I put it in glass jars, completely sealed. I have a commercial kitchen, a manufacturing kitchen, and you could just smell the garlic. Like it was so potent. And I brought home, this was a test batch, my whole pantry smelled like. And it's like, other companies that make their adobo, they're getting high quality powders from other people, from other manufacturers that do this process. But it's a big difference when you literally are making it from fresh produce. The potency is just incredible. So if you want to have Latin food at home, you want to make your own, you need garlic powder, you need onion powder, you need cumin, oregano, a little bit of turmeric. These are the staples, paprika, but onion and garlic for certain.
For
Cumin, my
certain.
mom.
I always have fresh, and one of my pro tips, going back to our initial tip hacks and tips that CG and I were giving, I like to have chopped garlic on hand. So that's easy to throw in anything. I even throw it in the rice sometimes to give it like a little bit more flavor. And chopped onion, because all of those things take so much prep time. And guys, a super duper pro tip, you can pre-chop like your peppers, onions, even your cilantro, and freeze it and just pull it out as you're cooking. I love that CG makes her stock, which I'm really looking forward to. That seems like something so comforting to do on a Sunday.
So let me tell you about the stock. Here's my best mom hack, and I got it from Michael Roman's, his book, Romans 20. You put it in a pot and you put it in the oven at like 200 degrees, which 200, 220. A cup of coffee is 210. So you're not going to burn down the house. You go to bed.
Ooh.
Okay. You go to bed. When you wake up in the morning, it's still like you can still touch it. I have done it where I've poured it. Now, granted, I have chef's hands and I make hot cheese. So like, okay, I can touch it, but it's as hot as a cup of coffee.
What else do you use the stock for? Because I use
it for everything.
Okay, so you put it in your rice as well.
Put it in my rice. If I'm going to make fricassé de pollo, I put it there. If I'm going to make carne con papa, so we're talking about chicken fricassé, we're talking about beef stew, any stew, any rice. If I'm going to make arroz con gandule, which is yellow rice with pigeon peas, I use my stock in everything.
Yeah.
It's, the flavors, it adds more of like an umami, savory flavor, but it's not unappealing to kids, right? And it's loaded with nutrients.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I love having broth on hand. My favorite, for those of you that don't want to make it and want to just buy store-bought, I love Kettle Fire. Their product is great. And I love to just sip on like broth throughout the day. If I'm not feeling well or if I need something like nice and comforting, it is something we use a lot with laboring moms too. Broth is a great way, like you said, to replenish the nutrients. So it's something that I feel like every kitchen should have on hand. So definitely we need to have fresh garlic, onion, or powder if you don't want to carry fresh.
Yeah.
Your stock. Once CG gets all her products,
really
posted and shared and launched, we can start supporting her as well and have even more staples in our kitchen. So tell me, CG, my last question would be, I know that you're reinventing Latin cuisine, and I am just thrilled to know that you even exist and that you're doing it for us because we do. I mean, yes, our food is deep rooted, and I don't want to lose what you and I had growing up. But I do know that there are a lot of ways that it can be made unhealthy. Like our ancestors didn't necessarily have all the education that we have. And I feel like it did change. I feel like probably my grandmother was making it super healthy. But then as the years went on and different commercial products came to life, that's when things started changing. Of course, when lifestyle became so busy. So what's a creative twist on a traditional dish that you're doing that you're making it healthy that would surprise our listeners?
Oh, that's a good question. A traditional dish, I think you hit on the point. Once commercialization came for convenience, a lot of people, we switched and we started buying the already prepared adobo and sazon and whatnot. I want to give that to people, but actually have it be as clean and fresh as possible. I think some of the twists and small tweaks that I make are making small changes, choosing lean ground beef. I can even find sometimes extra lean ground beef where it's 97% lean and 3% fat.
And I like grass fed as well. I can see.
Same. And I am super big proponent. We're in Florida. I am really big advocate of Fresh from Florida. I try to support our ranchers and our farmers and get our beef and our produce as close to home as possible. And we have some really great grass-fed options here too, out of Tampa, Hillsborough is Providence Cattle Company. We can sometimes find some from Miami in the grocery stores. But making small changes, going lean. The product that I currently have in the market is aceite de achiote. Achiote is a red seed that provides kind of like a subtle earthiness, an earthy flavor, and adds an extra savory just note to meals. Typically, when you get a little red packet of Sazón, it's supposed to be achiote or annatto in English. That's the very last ingredient in that packet, followed by red dye number 40, yellow dye number 5, and some other preservatives and MSG. So what I do is in the dishes where I use extra lean ground beef, I will saute my sofrito in my annatto oil. So I use that as a base to enhance flavor. I will
It also
saute.
helps with color too. It also makes
It
everything look so
does.
colorful and vibrant. And I
It
think that's a big part of
does.
our cuisine is the color, the vibrancy, the
Mhm.
different flavors. We don't just use salt and pepper. We use like a whole
No.
bunch of different flavorings. So I love that you're
Mhm.
incorporating that twist, and it looks like we're on the same page. I'm so excited for you to
I'll
launch
have to
even
send
more
her Bahar.
products.
Thank
Yeah, I
you.
would love to try the oil. I
Yeah.
use
It's
so many.
I use high quality organic high oleic sunflower oil and organic annatto seeds to infuse the color. But it is just a beautiful product that is still traditional. Traditionally, it was made with vegetable oil, canola oil, corn oil. So that's another way. I am making the same product with fresher, cleaner ingredients, healthier ingredients, while still keeping to our authentic roots. I still want that authentic flavor that I grew up with, but just making small changes. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can still use leaner cuts of meat, make your own stocks, make your own sofrito. You could buy jarred sofrito, and there are
You
great
just
companies
don't
out
know. You
there.
can't necessarily trust unless it's from a credible company what's really in it. Because, like you said, things that are quicker or more easy to grab tends to be, for the most part, less healthy, especially when it comes to our food.
You have to read the labels. You
Yeah.
absolutely have to read every label of everything that you buy, down to the granola bars you're buying your kids.
Yeah.
I read every single label and I make slow changes because obviously you don't want to go from like Fruit Loops to Nutri-Grain, or not Nutri-Grain,
Right.
but like one of the really chewy grape nuts, right? You don't want to like do something so drastic that your kids are like, what the hell? No, you want to bring them along on the journey really slowly, but also kind of point them in the right direction. And, so read the ingredients. When it comes to produce, the longer it sits, the less nutritious it becomes. You may still get those subtle flavors, but if you have the time and you have the energy, most importantly, I feel like for women, we struggle with the energy because we're juggling so many things. So whenever I have, and I'm struggling with the energy and my hormones as we speak. So whenever I have that burst of energy, I think, okay, what can I make? What can I do to prep? What do I have in my freezer that's waiting to get done? Whether it's, chicken bones from roasted chicken, okay, I have the time, I'll throw it in a pressure cooker and I'll make caldo. And having these things on hand is great for when someone gets sick, and the kids are always sick. But you have your stock. Now it's just a matter of boiling some potatoes or pasta. And if you have chicken too, now you've got a soup that didn't need hours to make. You can make it in 20 minutes.
Yeah. So definitely, I think with these tips, we can stay true to our roots and stay true to the
Yeah.
cuisine that we grew up with, but definitely reinvent it to make it healthier and just better for our family. I'm so thrilled to have this conversation with you. You'll have to share the
Likewise.
oil, that chote oil with me, and I'll have to share
Yeah,
like
I
some
will.
cilantro and eggs from my garden because that's my crop right now. A whole bunch of
Oh,
herbs and
you have
eggs.
eggs. I'm so jealous.
Yes. Yeah, I feel really lucky. Pedro takes good
Mhm.
care of the girls. And right now they're so happy. They're laying a lot. And one of them, we're not sure who, but one of them is laying colorful, like they're called Easter
Yeah.
layer.
Mhm.
So that's really cute and exciting. But yeah, making small changes. We're not doing everything perfect,
Mhm.
but I do feel with small changes, we can make a big impact in our home. But thank you again, CG. I'm so
You're
happy. We're going to
welcome.
link everything in our show notes for our
Mhm.
audience to be able to find you and keep an eye out for you dropping new products.
Yeah, I'll give you a discount code for our listeners.
Perfect.
Motherhood discount.
Bye. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Motherhood Kit podcast. I hope that you're leaving with some tools that will help you in the kitchen. I know I am, and I cook a ton. So I know that these tools can be helpful for any of us. Let's continue the conversation. Join me over on Instagram at Yamel Belen or on TikTok at The Motherhood Kit. Also on YouTube. I look forward to continuing the conversation there and maybe even learning what recipes you're coming up with today or what little strategies you're going to add to your daily or weekly routine in regards to cooking for your family. Your feedback is so valuable to me. I would love for you to leave a review on whatever podcast platform you tune in with. Let's continue to hold hands in this season of motherhood. Until next time.